This is Brian Meador from East Carolina University. You are listening to the Sports Objective, the official, unofficial podcast of the Pirates.
Welcome into the Sports Objective. Very special show tonight as we're debuting a very special event. We're going to do a series about the Peach Bowl. We'll talk about that. And one of my favorite coaches for East Carolina. We'll talk to him in just a second. Bubba Rosenbaum, how are you?
Doing well, Dave. I think I'm finally getting past that South Carolina loss, as tough as it was on Saturday. Hopefully the Pirates will be able to bounce back up at Marshall.
No doubt about it. The great thing about these about the football season is you lose a tough game, but then it's really fast and you don't have time to really think about the South Carolina loss. And somebody, Bubba, that would know about that is our next guest, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I'm very excited to have this guy back on the program. Coach Connors, how are you?
I'm doing well. I really appreciate the invite. And, we'll kick it around a little bit.
No doubt, Coach. You were with us back when we had our nostalgia party, our first big live event, July of 18th. And unfortunately, we lost Professor Cools because of the pandemic. But you came out that night. You've always been very good to us. And I know you're a great Pirate. We wanted to have you on because, Bubba, tell everybody the name of our great series we're starting about the Peach Bowl.
Yeah, we'll be talking to various coaches, players, and so forth connected to that 1991 season when the Pirates finished 11-1, ranked ninth in the country. And we're calling the series a peach of a season 30 years later.
Sounds great.
Hard to believe. And Coach, you, I tell you what, I tell people all the time, if you want to, I hear this is one of the things I want to say. And we'll talk about the Peach Bowl, but of all the former players that talk about Coach C, one of the things that they've told me about the ones that have made it to the big dance, that they've made it to the NFL. As they said, Coach Connors used to work us out. And so we get to the NFL and we're like, wow, that training for the NFL, that's all? They're like, it was that easy. They said, Coach would like run us and run us and run us and run us. And they said that how well that you prepared them. Numerous ones, Bubba can tell you over and over again, when they mention Coach Connors and the conditioning, they always talk about when they made it to the next level, they thought it was going to be worse than Coach Connors, not easier than Coach Connors.
Well, I'm flattered by that, and I appreciate that. Actually, I take that as a compliment. And the league is is much different than the collegiate level, and you've got a lot of individuals with a lot of individual needs and different ages and different I guess you could say places in their careers, and you really need to individualize their training based upon that, and also the position that they play and all those different things. And, the more you can individualize, the better it is. And, I never really had the desire to pamper millionaires. Maybe they're billionaires now. I don't even know. But I had a couple opportunities maybe to move to that level. But I'm very happy with the career that I had at the collegiate level.
Let's talk about, Coach. How did you get to East Carolina? And obviously under Bill Lewis, but you came in, was it 1990 when you came into East Carolina? Is my memory right on that?
It was 1991. I moved from being I mentioned to you that I was a cop for a while in South Florida, but I was also a high school teacher, and I was an offensive coordinator at a high school and also the head wrestling coach. And through my wrestling program, I somehow ended up at Bucknell, and then they wanted me to initiate a strength and conditioning program because of my experience in powerlifting and also the fact that I played football in college. And so I went ahead and started to, initiate the first strength and conditioning program at Bucknell. I became curious about what the Philadelphia Eagles were doing because I heard they were doing some interesting things with speed, which is something that really interested me my whole career. And so I went down and met Ronnie Jones with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he brought in Kevin McNair from out in California to the Eagles camp. And I met Kevin, and I basically became familiar with his his program, and I really think that he was the godfather of speed for football, because he was a track guy, but he really adapted everything to football, and that's kind of where speed development got started. And Ronnie Jones happened to be a good friend with Steve Logan. And so one day I just got a call from Ronnie, and he said, hey, I was down at East Carolina University with my friend Steve Logan, and they're going to be making a change in their strength program. Previous to this, Ronnie Buddy Ryan was going to move him to linebacker coach, and actually Ronnie was going to have me come in and interview for the strength job. And then I got excited and called him like the next week, and they all got fired. So that was it for my opportunity with Buddy Ryan. But anyway, I ended up speaking with Steve Logan, I think. Bill Lewis called me. I had no idea who Bill Lewis was. I honestly didn't know where East Carolina was. I wasn't that familiar with it. And Bill Lewis said, would you be interested in coming to East Carolina? I was in the process of also getting my high school principal certificate because I always loved education. I thought maybe I'd like to go into school administration. And I said, yes, sir, I'd be interested in interviewing. And then I never even heard from him for about 3 or 4 weeks because I think Dave Huxtable was trying to bring a guy in who was his friend. That guy ended up not having a master's degree. I was finishing my master's degree at Bucknell. And so about a month later, Lewis called me and said, hey, I just want you to know that I think you're the guy for this job, and I want you to get down here and interview. So that kind of shocked me since I didn't know him that well. So anyway, I flew in. I think I was speaking in St. Louis at the National Conference for Strength. Flew in from there to East Carolina. Henry Van Sant met me there.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a guy that I really had tremendous respect for. And Henry sat me down and told me, hey, the guy we have is, whatever reason, he's going to be leaving. And we need a tough guy in here. We need a guy that wants to instill discipline and hard work. And that's what this program's all about. And he coached with Clarence Stasevich and told me those stories and the history of ECU. And, Henry was just getting me really fired up for the job. I mean, I didn't know anybody at ECU, but I was getting really excited about it. And Henry said to me, he said, something, we're just stewards of the university. This place is going to be here a lot longer than we are, but, we got to keep this tradition. And so that whole conversation with Henry just got me really excited about the possibility. And then I had a brief meeting with Bill Lewis, and that was about it. And and I was offered the job. And so I came in, I think it was in, I don't know, it was either May or June, and we got rolling with the team. I was the only coach. I didn't have any assistants until late in the summer. I hired Tom Howley, but I basically had the whole team myself. And I just wanted to come in there and kind of attack and be demanding and make sure that we had anybody got out of line. I wanted to make sure I confronted them right away. And I could tell you a few stories there, but, that was my whole deal is I was going to basically do what Henry wanted me to do. And that was kind of right up my alley because that's something I always believed in. And I got a few other things that I can elaborate on with regard to that.
Coach, discuss doing your homework on Bill Lewis. He came from Georgia. His background was on the defensive side of the ball. He was very key, and a lot of that success the Bulldogs had in the 1980s under Vince Dooley. So if you would just talk about doing your homework on Coach Lewis and then building a relationship with him, because I know he was someone that was a huge believer in just instilling that discipline necessary to have the success that team had.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have to do any homework on Bill Lewis. I mean, Steve Logan told me, he said, hey, I'm bringing you in here. And Bill Lewis is going to be very successful this year. We're going to have a good team. We don't see him being around maybe very long. And, I was very naive. I didn't even think about, I might not even have a job after this year, but when I spoke to Bill Lewis, I was just very impressed with him. And he just seemed to be a really class act, very professional, very organized. Even the way the guy dressed, his shoes were always shined. He just looked perfect all the time. And So, I was just privileged to come in and have the opportunity to work for somebody like Bill Lewis and be on a staff like we had, because we had so many guys from that staff that have been extremely successful in coaching. And so, I was just happy to be here, but I wasn't really worried about, getting to know the coaches or getting to know the administrators. I just wanted to go in and hit the ground running with the players. I mean, that's really kind of where my focus was, is that I just wanted to get that thing rolling. And, I wanted to start my conditioning program, and I've always believed very strongly in speed development. And I wanted to get that whole thing rolling as soon as I possibly could. And so I got there every day at 5 a.m. I want to make sure I was the first one there and the last one to leave. I vacuumed and swept and sometimes mopped the place myself late at night. But nobody was going to get there earlier than me. I was there in my little 40 XP, and the players laughed at me. Like, where'd you get that car? And, everybody else has a dealer car, and, you get this 40 XP. But like, hey, man, I didn't care, man. I just wanted to coach. So, we had a good time. I was, like Robert Jones and Mark Washington and, all those guys I met, initially, Ernie Lewis and J-Dog and all those guys. I mean, they were great guys. They wanted to get to work, and they knew they could have a pretty good football team. And so I don't think they knew that I was going to run them the way that I did. I don't think Deion Johnson knew that I was going to come to his room and drag him out of there because he didn't show up one day. But that's kind of where it started with me as far as 1991. Coach,
I had a question as far as speaking of strength and conditioning for the Peach Bowl team. Can you give us, I don't expect numbers, but who was the strongest man on that team, on the 91 Peach Bowl team, in your estimation?
Well, if you look at overall strength, it was Robert Jones. I mean, Robert was pound for pound very strong. He's a big man. He was strong in every lift. He could also run. He probably could have used a little bit more mobility. That's something I should have worked probably more with him on. But Robert was just, he was a man. I mean, you knew he was gonna go high in the draft, and that he was very gifted physically, big, strong, fast guy, and he was really amazing because, again, I came in from Bucknell. I mean, so we didn't have any Robert Joneses at Bucknell.
Right.
So, so yeah.
Or there's some that maybe would surprise the viewers and listeners that were very strong, and we, with a naked eye, we wouldn't know it.
Well, David Daniels bench pressed over 500 pounds. I mean,
wow.
And usually if somebody got in a fight on the field, I was used to diving in there and, maybe put somebody to chicken wing half, the wrestling whole guy. David jumped on some guy one day, and they were fighting. I jumped on. I couldn't even move the guy. I'm like, who is this? And so David Daniels was extremely strong. He benched over 500, and there was a whole group of guys that loved to lift. And two of the guys that I was very impressed with, Greg Gardill and Zaim Kumalai. The nose guard and the three technique. These guys weighed 238, 240. That's all they weighed the whole year.
Yeah.
And, you didn't push those guys around. I mean, they were amazing pound for pound in what they did on the defensive front.
Coach, give us a glimpse behind the scenes as much as you can share. I know a lot of that stuff will stay there in those facilities where the workouts happen. But, just tell us what it was like, those winter workouts, and changing, or continuing to establish the culture that Coach Lewis was implementing those first two seasons.
Right. I was with Lewis one season.
Right. But
so I'll mention a few things here. Bill gave me the freedom to set the standard for conditioning, and Steve Logan did the same thing. Those were the only two coaches I ever worked for that really allowed me to set the standard for conditioning and just gave it to me. Like, hey, what are we doing today? What are we doing this week? What are we doing this month? Whatever you say we're doing, that's what we're doing. And every assistant coach has got to be on board. And so I really appreciated that, because I was pretty extreme in relationship to what I believed as far as what you needed to do to be in great shape for the game of football. Also, I've always been really big on discipline. So I had the freedom to enforce in discipline, and I took it on myself to do that. I didn't really go ask or tell Bill, hey, this guy did this today. This guy, I just did it myself, and so we would go to the dorm and get somebody, or we would meet them at 4:00 in the morning, or we would, be out there rolling in the mud or doing up downs or whatever. I mean, and I was not going to let anything get by me with regard to discipline. So, and I really kind of, I'm from West Virginia, Pennsylvania area. Both my grandfathers were coal miners. They spent a total of 100 years in the coal mine. Between them, one was 45 years, one 55 years. They both started 12 years old. So the work ethic and those types of things, I always related to Nick Saban and all the things that he talked about. And, and I kind of wrote down a quote here for, if you think you're helping your organization by not confronting people who are not doing the right thing, you are wrong. And I mean, that's something that I believed in up until the time that I left East Carolina, and I never wanted to compromise. And I think this is one of the reasons that Nick Saban has been so successful, but he also has the power to do whatever he wants to do where this is concerned, because he has been so successful. If you're not successful and the ship starts going down, you don't have much power sometimes, and you're afraid of losing guys. So you're a little reluctant to do these things. The other thing he said was, you lose respect from all the people who see it happen, and you do nothing about it. So if my assistant coaches see me not doing anything about it, or if the other players know that it's wrong and I'm not doing anything about it, then I'm in deep trouble. So I've always believed that I have to confront something immediately, no matter what it is. If somebody is 30 seconds late in coming into the weight room, it's got to be confronted. And things can get real tough there if you don't have a head coach that's going to back you up on that, especially if you don't want to compromise your own principles as a strength and conditioning coach. So, Saban calls these guys energy vampires. And, and that's a pretty good name because, if you're not doing the right thing, you're sapping the energy away from the whole rest of the team. And, and every team kind of has a few of these guys, I think. It's hard to have a football team without having some. And so, like I say, it's got to be the same for everybody. I've always believed that. The same for everybody. It doesn't matter who it is. So if your best athlete is 5 minutes late, he got to pay the price. Just like if a walk-on's 5 minutes late. And so, those things have been extremely important to me, and I really appreciated both, Bill Lewis and Steve Logan kind of turning conditioning over to me. Now, when we talk about conditioning, I just had a very specific formula. On Sundays, I like to run 300s around the field in season. We'd start out with about 4 to 6 300s, but the times were not real fast. But we were trying to actually purposely initiate moderate lactate levels, and moderate lactate levels facilitate restoration and also promote growth hormone. A lot of people don't know that. People will tell you, well, let's get the lactate out. The lactate's been out a long time. What you're talking about is micro tears in the muscle fiber, and you want to get circulation. And once you get circulation, these guys feel better. And so after 4 to 6 300s, even though that sounds like a lot, we'd go right to practice. And these guys were more ready for practice because the soreness from the game then was addressed. And, of course, some guys were still nicked up. And then from there, we'd go lift weights after practice, and then we'd go to the pool. So, that was our Sunday deal. And then on Tuesday, we always ran 4 full gassers at the end of practice. Everybody knew what was coming. Yes, you were fatigued. You just went through a tough practice. You were in full gear with your helmet snapped up. And if you didn't make your time, Logan was not happy with that position coach. And, I was not happy with the player. And so they had to stay after and do more work. So you had to make your time. You had to have that chin strap buckled. And, that was part of the deal also. And then on Wednesday, we did half of that. And that was pretty much a formula in season. In the summer, you'll hear these guys talk about 300s.
Yeah.
We ran 300s once a week. and that was on Tuesday. So on Tuesday, I didn't even know where this was going. I played defensive back in college. So I'd run with a post. I had to get lined back up. I might run with an out and up. I had to get lined back up. Me and the strong safety might change responsibilities. I had to contain, outside contain, take on 2 blockers and keep outside contained. I mean, these plays, you go 16 play drive, one after the other, and you tell me you're not going to get into the glycolytic energy system. I don't believe that. So when I see guys all bent over out there, they're going to 16 play drive now, and they don't even have time. There's no huddle. If you're all bent over like that, you're not clearing lactate. So the thing is, at some point in your training, you need to address the anaerobic threshold, and you need to basically get into that energy system. And that's why we did the running on Tuesday. Now, from there, the players said, Coach, this is getting easy. After we were running 4 of them, then maybe 6 of them. And I was like, well, okay, we'll go to 30-second, rest. So we go to 30-second rest. Well, Coach, it's pretty hard, but, we can do more. When it got to 8 for the skill guys, and this was kind of now this became a crossing over in the summer. When you crossed over, I gave you a gold shirt, and now you became a coach, and you didn't have to run them anymore. You coached the other guys. When Kevin Monroe came in and made 8 the first day as a freshman, the guys came to me, the seniors, they said, this can't happen. We need to run 10. I'm like, I don't even know if it's physically possible for a human being to run 10 300s in 55 seconds with 30 seconds rest. But like all the skill guys, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 and a few summers, everybody made them by the end of the summer. But really, that wasn't me. That was the leadership. And I was worried. I thought, I was worried somebody might go down. But still, we didn't have that until the end of the summer, where we already ran for 2-3 months. But that's something we only did 1 day a week. So, some of those guys would be in the locker room on Tuesday, man, just sitting there shaking their head. Ronnie Sudduth and Jamie Gray, they'd be in there. They'd come in there about 2 hours before we had to run and just go in there and meditate. And so, it just became a special thing. Whatever it is, 300s, or it might be something else in your program, but it was a crossing over. You knew when the fourth quarter came, there was absolutely no way that anybody in the country ran more than you ran or was in better shape than you were in. And we were looking for guys to bend over. We were looking for guys to go off the field. It was a secret. We didn't have raise the flag. We didn't have, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't have liked that, because I wanted to sneak up on somebody. I didn't want to have a video and raise the flag and try to wake people up. Hey, wait, we're in the fourth quarter now. We're about to kick your tail. We were whispering on the sideline, hey, we're tasting blood now. Let's go get it. I mean, and that was the whole deal then. So that's kind of how it evolved.
Coach, we've heard numerous players from your era talk about those 300s. So definitely, if you get a chance, go back and look at the archives of our show. And there's many of your former players that talk. That's one of the things that they talked about.
Yeah, that and then the number of up downs they do.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you this. If I wish I had, and I do have a video somewhere, I got to find it. I got a video of David Garrard making 10 300s, but I don't know where it's at. So I got a lot of videos that I got to dig through. But if you saw these guys with the gold shirts at the end of the summer running with the only 8 or 10 guys left that last week and coaching them and encouraging them and getting them off the ground and letting them know the deal as far as what the standard was, I mean, it was really something to see. And it was special. And, you just don't have things happen like that. I still think that was one of the most special things, of course, that I've ever experienced as a coach. And like I say, it wasn't me. I turned it over to them. And, I was just kind of a lot of times there shaking my head. But they got it done, and I think that it made an impact.
Coach, let's talk about the 91. Can we talk about the preseason, the fall camp, if you will? Is there anything special as a coach? Did you see I know you were brand new to the program at the time, but did you have any kind of feeling like this team? I know they're supposed to be good, but could you tell in that preseason in the fall camp that this is going to be a really good team?
Yeah, there was a tremendous amount of energy on that team. I mean, from the first day I stepped in the door, I just noticed the enthusiasm, and of course there was talent. Maybe not as much talent as some of the other teams we played, but you had commitment, you had talent, you had enthusiasm. Of course, I thought we were in great shape. We did a good job with that, I thought. And I thought Bill Lewis was a tremendous motivator. His Friday night talks, I mean, you could hear a pin drop, and he'd put some record on, some Whitney Houston record, or he'd always come up with something.
Kenny Rogers, I heard about that.
Yeah, I mean, so it was like, I never, I don't know. Like I said, I was pretty naive. I'd go to a coaches meeting and nobody was saying a word. It was just Bill, and he'd be asking a question. Nobody's saying much, but everybody said, well, Bill's going to be leaving, and these guys want to go with him. And I wasn't thinking about that. I mean, I was just, trying to get my job done. But I had a tremendous amount of respect for Bill that year, because I just thought he did a great job motivating our guys. And I thought practices were brutal. We're in pads a lot. We were live with the scout team, 1 or 2 days a week to the ground. And the practices were long. The practices in camp were long, and then we'd condition. And, these guys paid the price. When they came to the Peach Bowl, I ran like 12 300s when they got there, because I wanted to get the poison out. So, we carried that mentality into that game week as well, as far as conditioning was concerned. But man, I was just happy to be along for the ride, and I was very appreciative of the opportunity and very appreciative of the privilege to experience such a fantastic year in collegiate football. And I treasure that ring with that number 9 on it, and I keep it in a special place. And that year will always be special to me, of course.
Coach, prior to your arrival in those 89 and 90 seasons, we had lost games at Syracuse on a last-second field goal. The game at Pitt, who we had the dramatic win over in 91, which we'll talk about in a few minutes.
Yeah.
We had a 3-touchdown lead up at Pitt, lost 47-42, lost something weird like 19-15 between the hedges to Georgia. And so you had all those near misses. And then to start the 91 season up at Illinois, battle back from down 38-10, lost 38-31 after the controversial penalty there, which is an entirely other story.
Yeah, that penalty was terrible.
Yeah. But just talk about the mindset of the team, after all those near misses, had another one to start the season, and then bouncing back to beat Memphis State at the time, who had just won out at the Coliseum against USC.
Well, I mean, I thought the mindset of the team was total confidence. I mean, these guys were confident that they could get it done. They believed that they could beat anybody. And didn't matter where we went or who showed up. And I'll tell you another thing is, the fans had a lot to do with that as well. When we landed, I mean, I never experienced anything like that, where you land at an airport and you can't even get through the airport because, there's so many ECU fans there. And, and they're loud, and there's like a gazillion people there. And it was like just incredible. And, I mean, I said, hey, I never want to leave this town. I mean, this is the best football town in the United States. This is unbelievable. So, and then after the Peach Bowl, a lot of the coaches weren't on the bus, but I was on the bus. I was on the plane. But when you saw people who lined the road from Kinston to Greenville, I mean, I will never forget that. It was just incredible to me. And so, it wasn't just I think the players, I think the fans played a big part in that year in relationship to how the players felt from week to week, and, how much they wanted to do it for the fans. And, we had 35,000 in there then. That place was rocking. I still remember that Pitt game. It was incredible. And so, those are, of course, some of my fondest memories were from that year. And of course, Bill Lewis always had some theme of the week. He had some T-shirt that he handed out. He gave everybody a special time when we went to Cincinnati because this was going to be the 10th win, and he always had some kind of plan to make it special. So,
Coach, that the 91 season, I'll never forget. I'm a radio guy, and a guy that I think a lot of, and that would be another Jeff Charles. I'll tell you what, some of those, I know they're out there, but those calls on the radio he did with that Pitt game, and there's all that whole season. But Jeff is just a special human being to me, someone that I look up to, and you and he are two people that you get to know a little bit. And but with he calling, I think the 34th year now, but I think that was like his third year. But to hear those calls on the radio, and you have obviously, I know Bubba was there. I was a freshman in college up in the mountains, so I heard it on the radio. But that Pitt game in particular, I remember hearing him, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff is obviously a genuine Pirate, and he gets very excited. Some people would say, well, why is he excited about the other team or whatever? Well, Jeff just gets excited. I mean, so, but I don't think he was excited about the other team. I mean, that's just him. That was part of the deal too. I mean, he's been a big part of East Carolina football and East Carolina athletics over the years.
So we talked about last weekend's game against South Carolina, game 4 of that season. The Pirates were 0-8 all time against the Gamecocks. Maybe had a couple of near misses, but for the most part, it had been pretty lopsided in the series, 31-20, and the ball really started to roll downhill from there.
Yeah, that was a huge win, and again, I think that confidence is born of demonstrated ability. And so I believe that our team gained more confidence with those wins. You had the Pitt win by a point, and the Syracuse win, I don't know whether it was at 23-20 or something like that. So a lot of close games that we won in the fourth quarter, and I certainly was proud of that. But, these guys didn't want to lose. I mean, it wasn't just, and I think that was a great characteristic of the team as a whole is that, they had to find a way to win. They did not want to come out of there with an L. And, sometimes coaches and players have to find a way to do that, particularly when you're at East Carolina and you're an underdog and, you got to have some overachievement. You got a chip on your shoulder and all those types of things that were prevalent back then within the program. We were an independent and trying to establish ourselves, and we should have been higher than 9th that year. But as far as the motivation of the players, I think there are a lot of things that came into play, and there's a whole list of them. And so, I just think the whole program came together that year.
Going back to that Pitt game, Dave, before we move on, I remember on the We Believe video, just seeing the camera at ground level, and it was the same way, obviously, on the ESPN highlights. 36,000 fans. People were literally in the aisles, and
right.
you had a few rows of bleachers down in the scoreboard end zone. Just an unbelievable atmosphere, and the camera was shaking because of how loud the stadium was. And even though the stadium seats 15,000 more people now, I've heard so many people say that the loudest game and the best atmosphere was that 91 Pitt game.
Yeah, and I really think the bowl game with NC State, that We Believe chant, was incredible as well. I mean, I was happy to be able to have my parents come to that game. My dad coached me through high school, and just to be able to have them there to experience that, and that's all they talked about was that We Believe chant, and how our players fed off of that. Hey, maybe we should bring that back. Couldn't hurt.
And no doubt about it, Coach. And I remember that's the last football game I ever played at Fulton County Stadium. Was that game? They, of course, tore it down for what would become Turner Field, which is now Georgia State's home football field. Hard to believe. How about with that atmosphere at East Carolina at that time. I try to explain to people now where I work, there are kids that are going to East Carolina now. And the thing that hurts me, Coach, we'll talk about this second, but we'll talk about later on about the later years that you were at ECU. But I feel like I'm an old man now, Coach, because I say back in my day, back in my time, we won a bunch of football games. And I know that you're hurting right now because of the program is not where you think it should be. But let me just tell you, I told them what would have been my freshman year, 11-1, and having the 2 Liberty Bowl appearances and a 96 team that should have gone to a bowl. I said, the 90s, I said, hey, man, the 90s were a great time to be a ECU fan for football. And I just look back on that Peach Bowl year, for example. Some people don't understand, Coach, because it was 30 years ago, but we do have a proud tradition of football at East Carolina.
Well, there's no question about that. I mean, that's why I still live in Greenville. My family was raised here. I had a good 10 years in Chapel Hill. I really treasured that experience, but there were a lot of things that were the reasons that I wanted to come back. And my kids always thought that this was such a special place to live. And I have a house at Emerald Isle, and I really love that place. And, I love it down there. And so, I consider myself to still be a Pirate. And, the way it went down, where I was, kind of forced into retirement was tough. But at the same time, I look at this profession as kind of like the Cosa Nostra in that, if you join the Cosa Nostra, you're part of that life, which means you're either going to get murdered or you're going to go to jail. So if you join the collegiate coaching ranks, you're probably going to get fired at some point. Or, you might, I don't know, you may baseball bat a message board marauder and go to jail, but that might happen someday in the way in this profession. But anyway, when I was in Carolina, Matt Maloney called me about some lockers in the locker room. I say, I'm in Carolina, but I wrote a check for $5,000. I wanted to put my name on the locker at ECU. I didn't know if I was ever coming back. When I came back, I bought a locker in basketball as well. I'm proud of the fact that I invested money in the program as well. And every year I was also a Pirate Club member. When I was working there, coaching 11 bowl qualified teams in the time that I was at ECU, both times. And, I went back and looked at, and I mentioned this to you, in the 90s, we played 41 times. We played what are now Power 5 teams. And we won 26 of those games. In two years, we won 5 in 1 year. And I also started counting all the Power 5 wins that I was on the sideline for, and I counted 35. So I'm real proud of that.